I do work with the Advancing Futures Bursary Program. It is a bursary program for youth that are transitioning out of children and youth services. I won't speak too much about it other than if you have questions or you think you might know youth that are transitioning out of care that might qualify for the program, I will leave cards as well. The group has my contact info and I can speak more specifically to that program. But as a funder for bursary, I was approached by the FASD network to look at talking about post-secondary and talking about adult learners and how we transition kids in our program that may have learning disabilities or have FASD. How do we transition them into a successful environment? And one of the schools that came to mind when I'm in all the schools that I work with, because I coordinate Southern Alberta, was Bow Valley College. And one of the reasons Bow Valley was of main interest to me was because of their process that they have students go through. So when a student comes into Bow Valley College, they have to do an application process, and part of that process is to apply and take a placement test. That placement test will help Bow Valley then implement all their other services that they have for students with or without learning disabilities, with or without FASD. I'll let these two ladies talk more about their process. As a funder, that piece is huge. When we are looking at students that are ready to go into school, it's not just their personal circumstances that make them ready, it's also the school environment that helps make them more ready to attend. If they're at a school that doesn't have as many supports for students with learning disabilities, it makes it really that much harder for them to become successful. And on our program, students are lucky enough to have 2 opportunities on our program. Some bursary programs, some scholarship programs, some loan programs, you only get 1 opportunity. So it's really important to help ensure that the environment you're putting these students into is the most, has the most supports and is going not only be supported by the people that they have in their immediate, whether it be parent or caregivers or mentors supporting them through school, but also their funders and also the people that are at school. So Bow Valley does a really good job, and when students come through and identify right off the bat that they do have a learning disability, we do really recommend Bow Valley as a first step. It may not be the right fit for everyone, and that's why there are so many schools in Alberta that also have departments that work with students that have learning disabilities, but for me, Bow Valley is where I do send them. So the 2 students here are going to speak about their own personal experiences as students at Bow Valley College and as students with FASD. And Denise is going to speak about the Specialized Support Department. She's an expert in the field of special needs students, and she facilitates learning and strategies for staff and students. So her role is really to help those students that have been identified to connect with the school resources, as well as if there are community resources or if there's other funding out there that can help support them through their way. Emily is a counselor on site at the school, and she takes a holistic approach to the needs of the student and is not only concerned about their learning needs, but their psychological, social, emotional, and does a variety of assessments with these kids to make sure that they're getting the right supports that they need. So I will let them move into the presentation and go from there.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thanks everyone for coming today down there and everyone on off-site. Denise and I are very excited to share our knowledge today and hope that at the end you can share some of your learning as well. I'm just going to go through quickly what we're going to talk about today. Lindsay did a few introductions and a little bit of context about Bow Valley College for those of you on the offsite who are not familiar with our college. FASD and education, I'm going to talk about a little bit about what the research is saying about FASD and high school and post-secondary education. Success from the start. Denise and I really believe that success does start right from the beginning when a person with FASD walks through our doors. So we'll talk about how we try to foster that success. And secondary disabilities and education. So sort of the non-academic issues of a student with FASD coming to our college. And we're lucky enough to have 2 students here who are going to talk about their experiences. How to prepare for college. So this can actually be transferred to any college or any institution, and we'll talk about what works for the students at our college. And same with services. So we're going to be talking about Bow Valley, but really you can look for these services at any institution. And finally, Denise is going to talk about what it means to be an effective adult learner, so some accommodation strategies that are helpful to our students. So we're an inner city community college in downtown Calgary. We have a large ESL population and a large academic upgrading department as well. And we offer classes from about the grade 3 level to all the way to grade 12. And our career programs, we have diplomas and certificates in a variety of fields. So we have health and business programs. And we have 3 low literacy programs. So our ABLE program is half with people with disabilities and half without. So it's an inclusive classroom, and it's 2 mornings a week. Our SARA program is speech-assisted reading and writing, and that's for people with speech difficulties. And our Lifeline program is a low literacy program, which is offered at night. We have a Con Ed department, and we also have inclusive post-secondary, which one of our students will be talking about. This is in partnership with AACL, and it's for students with disabilities to be able to audit college classes and also get that college experience and do some volunteer and work experience as well. So there's not a lot of research out there about FASD and post-secondary education, but we do know that in some studies it shows that up to 60% of people with FASD have a disruptive high school experience. So this could be suspensions, expulsions, or voluntary withdrawals. And some of the reasons why people with FASD may withdraw early from school is due to poor academic performance, behavioral progress, and school adjustment problems. And this is where we at Bow Valley College see a lot of students with FASD come in, is because they're looking to upgrade their academic skills after having not a complete high school experience. But we do know that given the right environment and support, adult students with FASD can be successful in the post-secondary environment. So, and I'll talk a little bit about what the research says in terms of what we know about success and persisting to graduation. So parental advocacy, in the literature it shows that parents play a big role in high school. So they're one of the main reasons why people with FASD persist to graduation. Parents may advocate for accommodations, IPP, for just a general to have a good experience in high school. And interestingly, it says the literature of post-secondary education says the same thing, that parents still play a vital role in their adult children's education. So this is same thing, talking to people about accommodations, letting teachers know about the disability, and also helping at home with homework and memorization. But we do recognize that people in these studies had a parental figure, but not necessarily does it have to be a parent. We've noticed that any good advocate will help with the learning and success. So whether it be at an institution or an agency. So supportive staff and teachers, lots of people with FASD, with lots of students have said that supportive staff and teachers have made a huge difference to their success. So this is looking at teachers who to understand the disability, teachers who will give students one-on-one time, who understand the accommodations, who are patient, and same with supportive staff. Students recognize that for their success means feeling academically integrated within the school. And how we look at this is that balance between providing accommodations so that people can feel involved academically. And Denise will talk more about accommodations and strategies and how we can modify course loads so that it works. And a holistic approach to education. So we look at this as, it's not to support somebody with FASD in school, it's not just about the academics, it's also about the non-academics. So it may be housing problems, it may be problems at home. So it's looking at that holistic model and the wraparound services. So success from the start. So like Lindsay was saying, we have an entrance test for people when they come to Bow Valley College, and this really does ensure correct placement in classes. So once the test is written, so it's a writing component and a reading component and a math, once the test is written, they meet with a counselor, and we can correctly place them in classes, especially if someone has had a disruptive high school experience. You know, they may have left in grade 10, but their skills may have gone down or they may have gone up. So it's really important to get that correct placement. Also identifying the primary and secondary disabilities along with strengths and needs. So we're going to look at, you know, what are some of the academic issues and how can we support, and also what are some of the secondary disabilities and strengths and needs, so that right from the start, we have a whole picture of the learner and we can set up supports. Setting up academic accommodations and support. So we do know that getting this in place early will help the student be successful right from the first day of class. So whether it's a modified course load or assistive technology, a quiet room, extra test taking time, all of these things being set up is going to really help the student while at college. We also offer career planning. So we have 7 counselors on our staff, and we can look at careers. So it's helpful when students have an idea of what they would like to do with their lives after, you know, upgrading, but we can sort of flesh out some of those ideas and work with the student to look at their strengths and look at their needs in order to come up with a career that really suits their abilities. We also, like I talked about how the parental advocate is very important. We work really closely with agencies, so we work with the John Howard, we work with the PCAP program. Anybody that the student with FASD identifies as their support network, will work, you know, in collaboration with them and have those very first meetings. Because it can be really confusing to come to college for any student, right? There's the funding piece and the placement piece, and then you got to come back and forth. So we try to really streamline that process. And streamlining, we collaborate with each other. So we have tutors and support staff, counseling, specialized support. We all try to collaborate so that the student with a disability doesn't have to keep coming back and back and back. And consistency of support staff. So what we encourage students to do is to keep with one counselor, because you know, you identify who your support network is within the college, and if you can, you know, if you run into trouble, you always know, the student always knows where to go to. But of course, if there's not a good fit with the counselor or with any other support staff, you're allowed to switch. But we do encourage that consistency. So addressing secondary disabilities. So we know that many adults with FASD have been found to have high rates of mental health issues. There was a study out of BC which found 92% of the sample population had a mental health issue. So and that's high with depression and anxiety. Adults with FASD can also have housing problems, alcohol and drug problems, issues with the law, hunger, difficulty maintaining employment. So there's a lot of things that go along with supporting the person with FASD at school. It's not just the academic accommodations. And as you can imagine, those issues act as a barrier to both entry into the school and success while attending. So it's very difficult to participate both physically and emotionally in school when you might not have the correct medication, or you are homeless, or you're having housing problems. So what we do is we offer counseling. We have counselors on staff 5 days a week, and it's unlimited. So free counseling And the hope is that the student with FASD has already established a counselor that they can go to, and so if anything arises, they can quickly go make an appointment and go see a counselor to address some of those issues. So that is my part. So next we have two student stories to talk students to talk a little bit about their experience about coming to Bow Valley College. First we'll have, do you guys have a preference? Who goes first?
Not really.
Okay, so this is Kristen. She's sitting next to me, and Kristen and I have known each other since September when she came to school. Okay, so take it away, Kristen.
All right. Hi, my name is Kirsten Mollier. I'm 21 years old, and I was very, 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 very lost and confused when I decided I wanted to go back to school because I was deemed FASD. And when they diagnosed me about 2 years ago, I was very, very depressed and anxious and stuff because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to succeed in school because of my past times in school. They were really, really bad. And one of the programs that was helping me and my family introduced me to Emily. And when I met Emily, I knew that I would have a lot of support and a lot of help. And that's because of Bow Valley. She explained to me that I would have all the support and I would have everything that I possibly could need to get through school. And that's when I knew that, Bow Valley College was going to be the place for me. Because I went from getting 30s and 50s to getting 60s and 90s in classes, and and at that point in time, I knew that going towards my goal, which is graphic design, was going to be successful through Bow Valley College. I just realized that there has to be a different way going around things in order to get there. And I honestly believe that Bow Valley College is definitely the place to grow and to succeed. I enjoy the environment because the teachers are very, very supportive and they're nice and they help you when you need help. And yeah, I just think Bow Valley College is a great place. I'm really glad I chose it.
But it's also the hard work that you do.
I do. But I really like this school.
So what are some of the things that you are good at?
I'm good at doodling.
You got making friends.
Making friends?
Yeah, that too.
You're a very positive person. Students like you.
And what about accommodations? Are there any accommodations that are now, like, do you get extra test taking time right now?
Yeah, I do actually. I get extra test taking time when I have to take tests in class for math and English. And I have a tutor for my math. And I also have Emily when I need help on something.
Well, thanks, Kristen.
You're welcome.
Anything else that you want to add? Okay, good job. And next we have Natasha, who's going to share her story and experience about coming to Bow Valley College.
Do I have to hold this?
Yeah. Otherwise, I have to hold it for you.
Hi, my name is Natasha Gordon Beacon. I am 23 years old. I was born in Toronto, Ontario. When I was 5.5 years old, I was put in foster care. I have been put in many different foster homes and also put in many different schools as a child. I didn't like switching schools so frequently because it was hard for me to make new friends. It was difficult to figure out what classes and the levels I should be in. I was mainly placed in regular classes, but I was not given enough support as success. At one of my schools, I had a really nice teacher She helped me with my work and was very patient with me. But at the same time, I worked with a substitute teacher who was really mean to me. I thought she was calling me stupid every day, and she made me feel very invisible, so I was mean to her every day. She told me to get out of the classroom because I asked for too much help. Every day when I got home, I ran to my room and started crying and hid myself in my bedroom. In junior high, I was in a class called PACE Learning Program. It's a special needs class. Which this type of support, I went to some regular classes and some special needs classes. Being in PACE Learning Program made me feel so different from the other students. I never felt like I fit in with the other students. I was picked on by other students, and they even started rumors about me. Sometimes I had to fight to protect myself, but that didn't really work out so well. I had a lot of in-school suspensions, and I wasn't very happy. Bad girl. I also went to a Christian school, and that was also different than the other schools that I went to. But I also still had a special needs program. I got to go to some regular classes, but I had an aide with me that made me feel so awkward because she stood over me and watching everything that I did. I couldn't even hand out notes to my friends without getting into trouble. Going to high school was scary for me. I was in a special needs classroom to write tests, to do spelling, practice, grammar, general math, science, and computers, and resource help. The teacher said that I wasn't very capable for regular work, but I hated being in special needs classes. I felt like the teacher and the support didn't care. I ended up getting into a lot of trouble in high school, but I always did my homework on time. The other students would talk badly about me, and I got 2 school suspensions. Once was for fighting with a student in my class.
I got 3, I said.
What?
Denise got 3.
3 suspensions. So you did really good. No, I did. Sorry.
Well, I got 3, but I narrowed it down to 2.
Oh, okay.
And my other one was fighting and swearing at my teacher. That was a big mistake. I was truly sorry for doing that because she was my favorite teacher that I had, because I could tell her everything. I think she knew that I just had a really bad day, and that happens to everyone, not just me. In high school, I took childcare, one of my options. I really liked it, and it opened so many doors for me after school. I took 2 practicums when I was in high school, and by the end of high school, I had my childcare level 1 certificate. In grade 12, I started to change my life and my ways around. And it really worked out for me. I was helping with the students in my classes, and I also helped out in the office. I graduated with honors in my special needs classes. But when I was doing my high school practicum, I did not get to work with the kids as much as I would like to. Mostly I was cleaning equipment and going to help them to get ready for the kids to go outside. The staff, and also when the staff went on breaks. The owner of the daycare told me that I should go back to school to learn about more childcare. Yeah, and the owner of the daycare was so mean. But I'm not saying names. When I was in high school, we had a tour of Bow Valley College, and I learned that they had a childcare program. I decided to apply at Bow Valley College. I did the placement test, but I did not do very well on it. I found out about the inclusive post-secondary education at Bow Valley College through specialized support at the college. They told me about AACL. We just heard about AACL. And how they helped me through the college and my work. I started attending Bow Valley College in September 2008, working with the ACL Supports, an early learning and childcare development program, where I made a lot of new friends and also gave me a lot more options about what I could do in the future. But after taking some courses for audit and credit and childcare, I decided that I wanted to try something a bit different. So I started taking the small business administration course through the continuing education program at Bow Valley College, which I passed with a 97%. A plus. I met my ACL advisor almost every day, and she helped me with my questions that I had with my schoolwork. I had gotten honors in my classes, and my instructor has been really impressed with me at my work. I've been spent time helping my fellow students with things that they needed to do and they couldn't understand in their classes. I have just started a job placement at the business downtown Calgary, and I know that I have a lot more opportunities now than I did before. Well, and one thing, ACL had so many support people, but the one is the best. Yes.
Good. Talk about your dance and your...
Oh yeah, I do a lot of dancing, hip-hop, Caribbean, Bollywood. I remember dancing for 10 hours straight. Wow, that was tiring. I just started being in an acting agency, and they helped me a lot. And yeah, and I do a lot of singing too. And when she mentioned John Howard, Emily mentioned the John Howard place. I'm in there on Thursdays at 2 to 4. We talk about like how to work as a friend, and it's FASD thingy majig. And they actually opened a lot of doors, and I'm learning a lot more about FASD. But we have a lot of fun too, so I think I'm done here.
That's great.
Good job. Oh, and Kristen has one more thing to say.
I just believe, one more thought I was just thinking of as Natasha was talking was that in the school systems now, the teachers and the staff, all they're really concerned about is getting you through school and not really helping you, just, stating that, yeah, we put this person through school, yeah, she graduated, blah, 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 blah. But it's a lot different at Bow Valley because the teachers and the staff actually care about your success. And that's the one thing I like about Bow Valley. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, you have another comment? Great.
Very good.
Oh, and also when last year I was also helping with Barb Hagen's campaign. I'm really big into politics, and that's probably what I want to study too, is because I also want to run for mayor in the near future. Yay. I love Calgary so much, but I don't like the cold. Go Flames, go.
Good job. Well, thank
Good
you,
job,
ladies.
you guys.
It's
Yeah.
not easy to share your story, but thanks for sharing all the information and, supporting our school as well. So I'm just going to talk a bit about what questions to ask prior to attending college. So like I said before, this can, be applied to any other institution. Oh, they all came up. So before going to college, it's helpful if you have thought about career options. You don't, necessarily, like I know when I first worked with Kristen, she had a few options, but we really narrowed that down. We looked at her strengths and her abilities and some of her challenges and really narrowed that down to come up with graphic design. So that's helpful for counselors, and it's also helpful for the funder who really, we won't go into funding today, but the funder really, if it's Alberta Works or Advancing Futures, they do want a student to have a career goal in mind. So do I know what supports I need and where to go for support? So it's helpful for a student and their advocate to look back and think about what supports were helpful in high school, and if we can possibly use the same things in the post-secondary environment. Do you need counseling? Will it be helpful if you have tutors? A quiet room, extra test taking time. So any of those things that may have worked in the past, or you think are going to work, have a think about those before coming. And where do you go for support? So do you know where the counseling office is? Do you know where specialized support? And if you don't know, counselors can and other staff can actually physically show you where to go. And that's same with services. The institution can be very overwhelming, and the cafeteria, where's the cafeteria, where's the washrooms, where's the labs, everything. So we can, if there's anxiety around that, about where to actually find our services, we can help you with that. Do I have the appropriate documentation of a disability? So it's always helpful for counselors and specialized support to have documentation of the disability. It's not always possible. We can also request it from the CBE or any of the boards of education. But if you do have documentation of your disability, bring that into your first meeting so that we can get accommodations and supports in place right from the beginning. And am I familiar with assistive technology? So at Bow Valley College, we have lots of assistive technology, lots of different programs that can help with reading and writing and enlarging print. And Denise will talk a little bit more about, she's the expert on assistive technology, but if you're familiar with that and if you used it in the past, what worked for you and what didn't. And requesting accommodations and services early. So it's not always possible, but ideally on the first day of class, it's nice if a student can have, all their accommodations set up so that from the very first they know who their tutors are, they know where to go, to get a quiet room for a test and everything like that. So start the process as early as possible before coming to school.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about some of the services that we have available, but when we work very closely with other post-secondary institutions. So we have these in place, but we know that also the other post-secondary institutions have these kind of services in place. It's just that we were talking more about Bow Valley College, but I just want to ensure that to let you know too that these services are in place in other institutions. We work very closely together with the other institutions. So most of the institutions, I could almost say almost all of the institutions have a policy regarding accommodating students with disabilities. So this is really important, and this is something I think the last 5 years has been really become crucial that we do have a policy in place. We have, like the other institutions, a counseling and specialized support services. That is what our unit is called. Other people may call it accessibility services, disability services. So different institutions have different names. And in the counseling and specialized support, what we really like is how we work together with the counseling team and the student advisors. So the whole team together really works to support the students right from, as Emily was saying, right from the start, which is crucial. And in the specialized support, my part would be really focusing on specialized support. So we look after accommodations. So accommodations would mean, whether the student would need a reduced course load, because we really feel that a student who has a disability, if they go with a full course load, you set them up for failure. If you can start them at maybe a few courses at a time and then build it up later on, they're much more successful. So really focusing on the success of the students by providing the reduced course load right from the beginning. And other accommodations may be that the student will need extra time for exam. Some students really need isolation because any kind of noise would just really distract them. And although we don't have a lot of rooms, we try to accommodate. But we do have a wonderful test room that is quite large that is very quiet, and the student really feels, yeah, I can do my work here, and I'm not interrupted by other students who might drop in or who might, come and talk with me or something like that. So accommodations are just crucial to being successful for students. And the other thing is, for all students, we offer study strategies workshops. And study strategies, even though the students may forget about strategies, we will do these workshops on an ongoing basis, whether they be reading strategies, whether they be memory strategies, whether they be time management. The councils do a lot of workshops on, what kind of workshops? Conflict resolution, suicide, suicide prevention. So whenever students come to us and say, oh, we've got really trouble with that, we try to organize workshops so that, we would, whatever would work for the students. Other things that we have are assistive technology. We find that initially what we had is assistive technology was only available for students with disabilities. But like we see with so many things that we organize, is whatever works for students with disabilities works for all students, doesn't it? And really good teaching comes from working with students with disabilities, because we're always problem solving. We're always trying to think, what works better? What are better teaching techniques? And so the use of technology, for example, we have at the college, we have programs that will read back to the students. And so when they are doing their work, they look at it and it looks perfect. And then when they hear it read back to them, they say, oh, I never realized that. And it's so exciting to see the differences when they start using that. They scan their own materials and they get it on the computer, and the computer reads it back to them. Or we have, for other students, we have a Braille printer. We have programs that really helps them with the mapping. They've got ideas, especially students with FASD. What we often see, they're very creative. And they have all these ideas, but then the ideas get kind of lost in space. So we've got some programs in an AT, in assistive technology, that will really help them.
Like the iPod.
Yeah, the iPod is used a lot. Yeah, that's very good. We request education supports in the classroom. So if a student needs an interpreter, or sometimes a student needs a scribe or a reader, we try to organize that as well. That's all part of our specialized support services. Student may need special seating, like if a student is easily distracted, and that might happen sometimes. No, I don't look at you. That wasn't nice. No, but we all have that. Then we'll make sure that the student will sit in the front and have direct eye contact. And then, of course, we will request any kind of accommodation that student may need. I'm going to talk a little bit about strategies, because we really believe that when we work with students, we're always looking at content. But very often what we see is that the strategies are missing. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about memory strategies. We'll talk about memory strategies first. And there we see the deer or the moose. I'm not sure what it is. And the reason we have the picture here is to really show that one of the most important things for students is to really have a lot of repetition. So how do the animals find their place in the forest? Is by going over that path in the jungle over and over and over. And the same with students who have difficulties remembering. It's not just a road memory that is going to make a difference, but it's the repetition in a variety of ways that really helps to ingrain, what it is that they really need to learn. And there's a few key concepts. For example, structure is really important. Consistency. When you present something, I think it's really important not to go on and on and on, but to do brief presentations and shorten the time of the task. So if, for example, the student has to do a lot of tasks, try to break it down into smaller chunks so that it is manageable. And we find that that makes a big difference. If we say, oh, here's the manual, go ahead and do it, the student may get lost. So what is the issue? It's not that the student cannot do it, but it's how we present it. A lot of variety. However, we have to be very careful that the variety, we do put in the variety, but not provide a lot of variety at the same time. And so it has to be fun and it has to be exciting, but it also should not be that there is too much information at once. Because once a student gets overwhelmed, then we may lose them. Then again, whose mistake is, or whose fault is that? It's not the students, but it's what we're really doing. So really trying to think about, what are the issues here and what kind of techniques will work. There's other things that we have at the college, for example, simple flashcards or color coding, various mnemonic devices. And given the right environment, we really believe that all students can learn. Let's move on, because I have a lot of ideas on each one of these, but I try to kind of cut it short, because otherwise we'll be here all day. So when we think of challenges in executive functioning, really we're talking about issues in coping with everyday demands, right? How do you solve a problem? How do you communicate? What are the challenges in social interpersonal skills? What are some of the issues? So when we look at that, for example, teaching the skill itself is not enough. We really need to make sure that all of it works together. So if I am going to say, okay, we're going to talk about, like for example, Natasha, you're taking business course, and I give you way too much information, then what happens? That's right. It's just, yeah, you want to run away and you just think you can't do it, right? But we need to look at the environment to compensate for the executive functioning challenges. So what is it that we can do within the classroom, when we're working with students one-on-one? So what isn't working and what do we need to remediate, or how can we, what techniques do we need to build? For example, direct training is required. If what we like to do, sometimes we like to joke, or we like to use metaphors, or we like to use, a variety of trying to enhance the teaching. And I think we still need to do that, but what is really important is that we go back to explaining very explicitly what is it that the student really needs, right? And for example, if I would say, do you understand? What would you say? You would say yes, right? Yes. But I would then go one step further and say, well, what was it that I was just talking about? Or can you explain it to me? Or what is a better way of doing it? So really trying to use a problem-solving approach where I know, yes, you get it, right? Rather than telling you, I will tell and I'll ask. So really trying to get you engaged in a way that makes sense to you. Breaking it down, as I said before, breaking down tasks into smaller parts. If, again, you give the student the whole salami, what are you going to do? You're going to eat that and you're going to get sick, right? So you make sure that you slice the salami into nice, manageable parts, and then you can eat it. And all of a sudden, it's possible, right? Would you agree? Does that help? Yes. Yeah, right? Because when it's too much, you're going to say, oh, I can't do that. And you see this big mountain and you can't climb it, right? Yeah. So, external motivation. We often talk about, oh, adult learners are internally motivated. That may be true at times, but I think external motivation, like, for example, not stars or, but for example, if a student has accomplished something, then check it off. So they physically see, oh yeah, I've done that. So if there's a long list or a lot of things that you have to do, check it off and say, yeah, that is finished. or use color coding and say, oh yeah, look at all this. I needed to do all of that and I've done already 5 of those.
If you
And
give
that
me the
really,
stickers, I can do it.
you want to do stickers? We can do stickers. But that's, external motivation is a very important part of really telling the student, yeah, what you did was really good, and patting them on the back. Identify task and explain what needs to be done. Often we have the tutors working with the student and really trying to work on, explaining this is what needs to be done, and all the other things, don't worry about it. Assist with problem-solving technique. So really trying to think, okay, what is it that you need? How do you do it? And why do you do it that way? So really looking at, because the problem solving can be very complicated, but if you break it down and you have a real model where you, for example, you identify the problem, you deal with the problem, you explore, you act on it, and then you look back. It's kind of one technique that the student will benefit from because it is consistent. That is one technique that you may always use. And set reminders at a regular basis. So for example, if the student doesn't show up in the morning, well, what is the reason? Well, the alarm didn't go off, or I forgot about it. So the more routine we can build into the schedule, the better it is. Would you agree with that? Because you want to be there. It's not that you have intention of not being there, but there may be a variety of reasons. So if we schedule, set up a schedule, and it's a routine that happens like that all the time, then it's much easier to stick to it.
Yeah, it's because my classes are at noon.
Yeah.
I'm not a morning person, so I have a routine. I get up at 9. I'm at the door by 10:50 to catch the bus. I'm here at time. It's consistent.
Yeah, but there's a good point. You are not a morning person, so we do have classes at noon.
Yeah.
And that works well for you.
Yeah, it does.
I've got another student, I don't know what time you usually are here, probably at 9 o'clock or so. No? So you're not a morning person either.
No, my classes are at nighttime, so that's great.
But you'll be there, right? And so those are the kind of things that really help. And we'll talk a little bit about strategies for organization. Again, ensure the student has an agenda. Student get an agenda, either a hard, the old-fashioned way, just a hard copy, or like you have your iPod, you may have a day planner in your iPod.
No, I went to that place. It starts with a G downtown. Grandin Toy. There we go.
Yeah.
They got good ones.
I don't have one.
Yeah, it really helps to keep you on track. Some students have, for example, a watch that rings on a regular basis, or so a variety of things that say, yeah, I know what I'm supposed to do. Provide a table of content. What I often do when I work with tutors, for example, I'll make sure that when they are doing the tutoring, it's not just the content that they are tutoring, but really working with them on, hey, how does this book fit together? And the table of content, for example, really gives students a structure again. So getting back to providing that structure that is not automatically there. Use a checklist to check off what is done. Again, visually, physically, getting them involved. Yes, I feel that is done, and that really helps. Because again, it doesn't look like, oh, I've got to climb this big mountain. I know that I can chew off a little bit at a time. Model categorizing. Categorizing really helps with a student, again, putting things into in categories that make sure that I can get this one done, and I don't have to do it all at once. Keep tasks short and attainable. Again, if we are giving too much information, then the organization is going to suffer. If we do a little bit at a time, it really helps the student keeping them on track. Use structure and sequencing techniques. Sequencing techniques really helps the student to realize, oh, I need to do this first, second, third. So rather than saying, go ahead and do it, if you set up a sequencing for them, it really helps them to get it done. And then if it isn't done, then you can say, okay, you've done number 1, but where's number 2 and 3? So really helping, right, to say, oh yeah, I can do that. I'm able to do it, rather than giving it all at once. At the college, what we're also trying to work on a lot is these kind of techniques that we're talking about are good for all students. So we're talking about universal design. And universal design really helps students with disabilities and other students really trying to say, hey, I can do it in a different way. For example, if a student has to finish something, but they may have difficulty with writing, and that might not be a possibility, then why not have the student say it in the computer? Why not have the student talk to another student? Or why not, compile a scrapbook and express in that way that, yes, I have the knowledge, I just am not a good writer, or I am not very good in talking. So we're trying to find out different ways that help students get the information from their brain to whatever they need to do, whether it be talking, whether it be dancing, whether it be singing. So that is kind of universally designed in a way that it works for all students. Spatial explanation help to focus on task at hand. So, for example, when we work with the students on math issues, we often see that the whole page is full with, math problem solving. And then when we present them with pages that have lots of space, all of a sudden, students can become much more organized and say, oh yeah, that really makes sense. Now I can see it on the page, and that gives them the space. Do you see that? You're laughing there. It really helps to, don't be afraid, take a new page, right? And assist with binder organization. Yes, I like that one. When the binders are disorganized, the mind is disorganized. So it really helps when those are little things. If you just say, hey, use the tabs in there, and this tab is for math, and this tab is for science, then you feel like, yeah, I can get it done. Okay, here are some strategies for increasing concentration. I'm just going to read those ones as we kind of have to move on. Provide frequent breaks, as we talked about. Breaks and break tasks into smaller units. So the breaks is really important, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah? No, but we often, we talk about how do we learn best. And really, the mind can only focus on something for about, do you know how long?
An hour and a half.
Oh, no. That would be really good. 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is, though.
That's true, but 20 minutes, and then take a break, have some water, or go out to the washroom. No, we don't.
Oh.
Yeah. But a break is really good, and then you come back, and instead of just starting with a new topic, review what you have done, right? And that really, really helps. Right? So, but the breaks is really crucial. Again, I get back to that over and over, structure really, really helps. Redirect the learner to the task at hand. So your mind may go off in la-la land at times. Pull it back physically and say, be here now, right? So really, yeah, and that happens, and it happens to all of us. But it's really important to say, doesn't mean that I can't do it, but it is one of the strategies that I need. I need to say physically, let's get back on task. Make meaningful connections and allow for making the connections. This one is really interesting because what we often do, we teach and we talk, but we say, well, what does it mean to me? So trying to think of your learning as something that, how can I relate it to what I do every day? For example, we work with students who have real difficulties, and we see that over and over learning the fractions, right? They say, well, why do I have to learn these fractions? Why do I have to do these decimals? And then we bring it back to, well, maybe you'll become a carpenter, or in your house. You may have to measure certain things if you want to put something in place. So trying to bring it back to the real life, trying to bring it back to everyday things really, really helps. So the connections, and allow time to make that connections, not just the teaching, you go, say, okay, well, what did you get? And how does that relate to your place? Or how does that relate to you? Helping with the categorizing. Using gestures and using your body. So rather than just sitting down and just studying, like for you, for example, you're excellent in music, use the music as part of your learning. Use the music as part of your studying, right? You don't have to just sit and look at the books.
Like the science, because when I was in a science class, I got to do a dance, we got to do our bones.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Head and shoulders, knees and... No, but like that would, and when I teach the LPN students, for example, I often bring little yellow stickies, and they're talking about anatomy and physiology. We put the stickies on there, or we use specific ways, to help them remember something. For example, they taught me RCMP. Do you know what that is? Do you know what RCMP is?
Ambulance.
R is for radial, C is for carpal, M is for metacarpal, and P is for phalanges. So that is a strategy that helps them to remember, right? RCMP. I would have never thought about it, but it's a really good way to help them, concentrate and remember something that makes sense to them. And again, you make up your things. What works for you may not work for me, right? So be clear and precise in instructions. So again, if you say, okay, the reason I want you to do this is because of this and this and this and this, and I go on and on and on, you go, okay, Denise, I'm gone. There's La La Land again, right? You just talked about.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, you want to leave. So just very clear, okay, what do you need to do first? What do you need to do next? And be very explicit in the instructions. Establish rules and provide positive feedback, right? So to me, what we often do is, oh, you did this wrong. No, you don't need to do it that way. What do we forget? Or do we forget to give positive feedback? Oh, I really like what you wrote here because it really makes a lot of sense. Or I really like what you did there because it helps somebody else understand, better what you want to talk about. So really trying to do the positive feedback. And because what happens when you get positive feedback? It makes you feel better. Makes you feel good. That's right. And you want to do it again, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be stuck and say, see, I can do it. But if you, for example, on your marks or on your paper, you see a lot of red, how does that feel?
Makes you feel like you're stupid.
That's right, right? And you're not, but it just looks that way.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the positive feedback is as important. And not just saying, oh, that's good, but explain why it is good. What is it that you did right or what is it that you did wrong?
Give an explanation for why it's wrong.
That's right.
Instead of just saying it's wrong.
Yeah, that's right. And I said no perfume or bright sunlight. Those are things that might really irritate students.
True.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah?
There's a lot of people that I'm allergic to really intense smells of perfume. And
Yeah.
if they are standing in front of me or whatever, it smells like they showered in their perfume or might have showered in their cologne, and you're like,
Yeah. Yeah, you want to just run away.
Yeah.
You might be overly sensitive to it, and it
no, it gives
Yeah.
me a migraine.
Yeah, that's right too. So just little things to think about. And this is feedback from the students. And I thought I really wanted to show you that because this is not my, coming from us, but it's what the students have said. So the students tell us, for example, that it really helps when we relate the new learning to a real life situation. And I always talk about going from the concrete to the more abstract. If we talk very abstract, what happens? We may lose you, right? But if we say, no, this is what we do in real life, how does that relate to something else? Then all of a sudden the students say, oh, of course, that's what it is, and it makes sense, right? Attend classes and practice what has been taught. I thought that was really good coming from the students, because what we, and especially with Emily, a lot of the students who come to you may say, you know what, the reason I failed is not because I can't do it, but because I wasn't there. And so they know that if they do attend classes, it really makes a big difference. And practice what has been taught. Practice, practice, practice. Right?
Practice makes perfect.
Practice makes perfect. Make homework a routine. Yes. You like that?
Homework.
But it's true. If, you know, it's the same with exercises. If you don't go exercising every day, then it doesn't become a routine, right? And so you might do it or you might not. And the same with homework. If you have your homework and you know that between, well, in the morning wouldn't be very good for you, but if you say after work from 4 to 5, after school from 4 to 5, that's when I do my homework, and you set a specific time, then you'll probably stick better to that, right?
Usually I do my homework when I get home, but I have a 2-year-old at home who's like clingy to me as soon as I walk through the door, so I'm trying to do my homework and
You do your homework at school then?
yeah, I do my homework in between classes.
Very good. And I recommend that to students, because the minute you come home, there's so many other things you want to do, and especially when you have a little one at home. You can't say, oh, go and play, you know, your mommy has to go and do homework. The minute you say that, what happens?
The minute I say that, he sits on me, because in the mornings he usually sits on me and he won't let me get up because I have to watch Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. There's like a set routine of cartoons in the morning on Family Channel that he likes to watch with me.
Yeah.
And because I'm not there every morning now, he picks it on the weekends. But because I'm not there during the day like I used to be, his routine's all mixed up. So when I walk through the door after school, it's
Yeah.
he like pummels me at the door.
That's
and
right.
he doesn't leave my side until bedtime. So I mean,
Yeah.
I have to do my homework during the day at school and between my 2 classes because it just won't work.
Yeah, and that's really good, and that's why one of the techniques we always talk about is 3 simple words: be here now. But they're very hard to do. So when you're at home, and you are with the child, right? When you're at school, and you try to do the work that at that time.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel so much better, you know, because you know when you come home, that's okay. I don't have to do the homework, right? Because you have built in that routine on a
Yeah.
daily basis. Good for you.
I'm the opposite. I can't do my homework in quiet places. I have to do it in loud areas. So that's why I usually do it in a coffee house in Kensington, where there's a lot of friends, and
Yeah.
I get it done.
Yeah, and that's right. And that's the one thing we have to always remember. We don't talk about students with FASD. We talk about a variety of students. But each student, whether you have FASD or whether you have another disability or you're another kind of person, we all learn different and we all have different needs.
Yeah.
And that is really important when we think of any kind of teaching, right? So you need a quiet place. You need lots of noise, you know.
Fireplace. I put my headphone. Like I need
You need-
something that'll keep my mind.
Yeah, to
That's
keep your
what I
mind
have.
busy,
Music.
but not everything else
Not everything
around
else,
you.
just put music in my ears and like, okay, I'm doing this.
Yeah, so the music really works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is exactly what, when I talk about students, you know, tell me what works for you. And that is what is important. Student who says, need to see it, hear it, do it, and tell somebody else. So what do you see there? All the senses, right? I need to see it, I need to hear it, I need to do it, and then tell somebody else. So really trying to get all your senses involved. And again, review, repeat, but not in a boring way. We can make it really interesting and, you know, to review it and
But don't
repeat something.
Repeat it over and over and over.
That's
and over
right.
and over.
No, that's what I mean. When you, for example, when you explain something, I can show you something and then, you know, not the same thing over and over. Okay. Yeah, we were talking earlier, just very briefly, about the student is often really very creative, right? And so you have an idea, like here, for example, you have an idea of the alien, and you want to write about it, but what really helps is to categorize it. and help the student realize, oh yeah, you know, I have all these ideas. And so the program here that we have is an assistive technology program. It's called Inspiration, and it's really cool. So the student will write all of that, and this is from you guys. Do you think it's funny? That's good. But it's really neat. Like when you do that, you have the idea of alien, and then you come up with all these ideas. But where do you put them? How do you categorize them? So this kind of program really helps to not be afraid and get rid of your ideas. And then what it does, it really puts it in a linear way, and it will then say, okay, this is the heading. These are these are the details, and you know, help the student really work it out that way. So it's just a fun program that helps with reading, it helps with writing, it helps with organization, and it really, you know, helps the student with a variety of study skills. So we use that one as well.
Great. Thanks, Denise.
It would be great if Lindsay could talk a little bit about the Advancing Futures Bursary in terms of eligibility and benefits available.
Sure. The Advancing Futures Bursary Program is for youth that are transitioning out of care or have already transitioned out of care. Is eligible for youth with PGO status, which is Permanent Guardianship Order, if they had Permanent Guardianship Order between 13 and 18. So if they had Permanent Guardianship Order prior to 13, they would not qualify for the program unless they still had that status between 13 and 18. Always talk more specifically about a particular youth, or if you have one that you want to check a status on, as long as you have a signed release, we can check a status and find out if they would be eligible to apply. Does that answer your question?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Other questions from video conferencing?
I have a question here in Meadow Lake.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering, at both or is there no residential services available for students?
Housing.
Oh, housing? Oh, no, we don't have residents. We do have an agreement with SAIT up the hill, so SAIT's quite close to us, and they will take our students in their residence. But no, we're just sort of an inner city community college, and we don't have any residents there.
I have a question from St. Paul. I think it's for Emily. When you're kind of doing an interview with someone and they, you know that they need help based on their assessments, but they say, I don't need help, I'm fine. How do you go about setting things up for them?
Well, I think, I mean, if they, you know, if there's no mandatory services, they don't have to accept supports if they don't want to. So we just keep it open for the student. And often what I find is that people who don't want supports, it's usually because they had a bad high school experience. So they were in special classes, or they, you know, they felt different from everyone. But, you know, 3 weeks into the program, they might realize, oh, okay, you know, I really could use a tutor. And there's other people here who need tutors that, you know, don't have a disability, so they don't feel like they stick out as much. So we just leave it open, and, you know, it's an open door policy. They know where specialized support is. They know how to find me. And it's, you know, if we have the documentation in place, it's pretty easy to fire off an email and get, say, a reduced course load for somebody, or to get tutoring in place. So it is open. It's not like if you don't accept it at the beginning, you won't get supports, but yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, this is I'm from Red Deer, and I wanted you to give me the age of the students in the program was one question, and the other question was, you commented on any facilities in the central Alberta region that sort of offer a similar program?
Yeah, so the age range of our students at Bow Valley College, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, in terms of, in this program, the program that you're offering for FASD.
Okay, so we're not exactly developing a program for FASD, and our programs aren't, we don't have any specific programs for people with FASD. It's more inclusivity, so people with FASD are included in all our programs alongside with people with, you know, other learning disabilities or no disabilities or other challenges, other barriers. But I would say our learners range, we don't accept anyone below 18, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so 18 to 50 years old. But most of the students we see with FASD are probably between 20 and 35.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of other programs, I mean, we're just a college, so there are other colleges like us in like other community-based colleges within central Alberta. I'm not aware of any specific programs for people with FASD. There was a pilot study at U of C that was just exclusively for students with FASD, and I know Regina Community College offers. They did a pilot as well for, you know, an exclusive FASD classroom, but I'm not aware of any educational opportunities for, you know, just to support an FASD population.
In regards to the central region, I support students at Red Deer College, and both of those colleges do have the same departments that Bow Valley does with the specialized supports for students with disabilities. So I do have students out at those schools that do have FASD that are receiving supports through those departments. A lot of the accommodation Valley on the disability, whether it be FASD or just other developmental disabilities. They have, both schools have a vocational program as well for students that may need those specialized supports before they enter regular school. So both colleges do have the accommodations, but you have to go to those departments. Neither school has a placement test, so the students have to be willing to identify or have supports help them identify that they do either have FASD or a learning disability.
From East River, Bow Valley mentioned a placement test. What testing do you do for your placements?
Like the test is called the CAT, so CAAT, and it's either the CAT B or the CAT C, and CAT B is below high school and CAT C is above high school test. But it's a reading comprehension component, and then we get a simple essay, so you know, a page or as much as you can write on a choice of 2 topics, and then a math component, which is basic and advanced. So we can place according to the math placement on that.
And we will provide extra time or any kind of accommodation the student may need right at the entrance test. And if we're not sure and we see major discrepancies in reading or writing, then the students often see us to do some informal further testing.
Yeah, and I might add that on the front of the test, there is a spot where people fill out their name and their past high school, and it does ask if you have a disability or if you've ever been in, I think, special classes, it says. So that's one way that if someone doesn't self-identify right away, like at specialized support or through counseling, that's sort of a way that we can initiate contact with students with disabilities if they identify as having a disability on that placement test.
Thank you. One more question for Lindsay. Lindsay, are you responsible for the whole province for the Advancing Futures bursary?
I support students that attend the post-secondary programs from Camrose South that are doing post-secondary or diploma programs. I support. There is a colleague in Edmonton. She supports all the high school upgrading students for the whole province. And then I have another colleague in Edmonton that supports all the post-secondary and diploma programs Edmonton North. Currently, I have 200 students on my caseload that I support to attend post-secondary. So I rely a lot on the post-secondary institutions, to provide additional support, especially if the student has learning disabilities or FASD.
And so how many?
First and March 31st of this year, we had 600 students access the program. It is a $5.4 million program.
Okay, so I think hello everyone again. I think we'll wrap then. I just want to thank everyone here very much for coming. I know some people were a little nervous. Well, probably you all were really nervous. First time video conferencing, first time in front of a camera maybe. So you guys did awesome. Everyone did very well. And I just want to thank you on behalf of all the people joining us through video conferencing. So again, just the evaluations, make sure you've signed your sign-in sheets and they get sent in. Evaluations will be sent out in a couple of business days, and your feedback on those evaluations are really important to us, so just make sure you fill them out when you do get them. And our next session is in 2 weeks on March 9th. It's called Cognitive Interventions for Individuals with FASD with Jackie Pye and Carmen Rasmussen. So thank you, and thank you everyone here.